Hi, and welcome. I'm Anthony Mason along with Michelle Miller, and we're here in the CBS Morning Toyota Green Room with chef and food writer Samin Nosrat, who didn't even consider a career in cooking until she ate at Berkeley's legendary Chez Panisse during college. She got a job as a food runner there and worked her way up, eventually impressing renowned chef Alice Waters, who's called her, this is big, America's next great cooking teacher.
I think Julia Child, the next great Julia Child, was even put in there. But last year, Nosrat's first cookbook, Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat, became a bestseller and earned her a James Beard Award. It
Congratulations.
That's a big deal.
Thank you.
Also inspired, a critically acclaimed Netflix series by the same name. The show explores what Nosrat considers to be the 4 vital elements of cooking. You guessed it, the title of her book, and we welcome you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Take us into this, because the first thing I thought was, wait, what happened to sweet?
Oh, it's true. Everyone's like, what about sweet? And I do think sweetness is so important. Certainly as humans, we're attracted to it.
Yes.
But to me, it's not one of the crucial things in everything that we eat. These are the 4 that are universal to all sweet things and salty things. So, and I also think there's a way where each of these 4 elements interplays with sweetness. And so, salty and sweet, sour and sweet, and of course, creamy and fatty and sweet. So, and I really love the idea of trying to use cooking and use salt and everything to bring out the natural sugars, especially out of things like vegetables. So if you know that when you go to the farmer's market and you're buying the freshest vegetables, they actually have the highest amount of natural sugars. And then when you roast broccoli in the oven and it gets brown and caramelized, that's sweetness that comes out. So there's a way, I think, where the more sort of familiar you are with cooking, the more sweetness you can bring out naturally without adding sugar.
You weren't actually that familiar with cooking when you started at Chez Panisse.
Nothing. Not grilled cheese sandwiches. So yeah.
That's my specialty.
Yeah.
No. So what happened exactly, and what was your aha moment that led to this idea?
So I saved up for 7 months with my college boyfriend to eat at Chez Panisse, and
I love
it was
this story.
This really incredible experience. I had never eaten in a fancy restaurant like that before. We were 19. I was 19, and so we definitely stood out in the fancy dining room. And it was just such an incredible experience, and I felt so cared for that immediately I wanted to work there. So I wrote a letter and asked for a job bussing tables.
You hand-delivered the letter.
Yes, I hand-delivered it. And very quickly, once I started working there, vacuuming the floor and polishing silverware, you get to eat everything and smell everything and watch the cooks cooking. And it was so inspiring, and I was a struggling poet and an aspiring poet in college. And
that's not going to get you fed.
And so I was like, I need a skill. And it was so inspiring, so I begged them to teach me how to cook.
Right.
And the menu there changes every day. So the chefs don't use recipes, because one day they're making paella, the next day they're making lasagna or bolognese or all different things from around the world. And so over time, I was like, how are these people entering the kitchen? They don't set timers. They don't really check the temperature of the oven. They know how to make everything without a recipe. And I noticed these 4 elements were basic to everything that we were making. So I came to one of the chefs and I said, I figured it out. Salt, fat, acid, heat. And he was like, yeah, we all know that, duh. And I was like, okay. And I said, why isn't it in any of the books you've told me to read? So at that time, I was like, I'm gonna write a book about this one day.
And you did. And what's so interesting about this book is how you illustrate. I mean, this is really your cup of tea, Anthony, because your stepdad was an illustrator.
So I love the fact that this book is actually illustrated. It's not photographs. But why did you make that decision?
Well, I felt very strongly that I love beautiful food photography, but I felt like this book, the idea of my sort of theory here is that once you know how to use these 4 elements, you can make anything taste good with or without a recipe. And I didn't want people to feel like they had to rely on recipes. And if you have spinach in your house, but my recipe calls for chard, you should know you can switch those.
Yes.
So if by doing overly styled, very beautiful photos, it sort of sends a message that it should look like this.
It has to look like this.
And my stuff doesn't even look like that. So I worked with this incredible illustrator, Wendy McNaughton, and she made, look, we made all these amazing charts and things
Yeah, I love that.
to show the ways that flavor is the same around the world. You know, and you tweak a few different things, and here you add like a different kind of cheese to make your stuff taste maybe, you know, Middle Eastern, you use feta cheese, or you would use gorgonzola as a source of acid for Italian food. And there's just a few basic things. Once you learn them, you can make anything taste good.
What I find so unique about you is that you're so different, but because it is so authentic, it is not other. You make it so not being an outsider, but you grew up feeling that way.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's funny because the more I think about this and talk about it, I'm like, oh, I felt like such an outsider. I'm like, did anyone really feel like an insider? I think everyone probably.
Everyone! That's a secret.
And so that's part of it. And also, because I always felt like I didn't belong, I know how hard that feels.
Yeah.
And I don't want to ever make anyone else feel like that. So I feel like food is this incredible tool to sort of bring everyone in.
Yeah.
And I'm so lucky that I get to do that.
So when did you get the idea of blending your storytelling skills
Yes.
with your food passion?
I've always wanted to write since I was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
And I had an incredible high school English teacher who really encouraged me to
That's
be a writer.
so huge.
It was amazing.
What's the
And
teacher's name?
Coach Dorman, he was also my coach, Thomas Dorman. Thank you. He lives now in Cedar Woolley, Washington.
We always like to give shout outs
Yes.
to teachers who
I
make
was
or
just
change our lives.
emailing with him the other day.
Yeah.
And so I really went to college sort of aiming to be a writer.
Yeah.
And then when I came to food, I knew I didn't want to let go of writing. So I always pursued both.
Yeah.
And I was really lucky to get to find a way to intertwine both and make
Mm-hmm.
a career out of both. And I can't really do just one. I feel very much like both parts of my heart and my body need both, and
Yeah.
my mind.
Would you say that your career has really just skyrocketed since this Netflix series?
Netflix is bananas, you guys. like overnight, it's really less than 12 hours.
You can recognize.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
so crazy.
I FaceTime my girlfriend, and she's like, I know her.
And so, I mean, 190 countries simultaneously. The power of Netflix is beyond anything I think
Yeah.
anyone can understand.
Yeah.
And so I feel, again, really privileged to have had this incredible
I
opportunity.
want to ask you, because I read something about when you were talking about developing this series from your cookbook, and you described how you wanted, in some ways, it to kind of feel like your room at home and all the quirky stuff that's there, which I thought, it's actually a concept I've had myself, so I thought, and most people looked at me like I was nuts when we do our own show here. And so what were you, take me through that process and what you were thinking.
Well, I mean, I can't take all the credit. I worked with an incredible team of like producers and directors. And really our director, Caroline Sue, she was, I think, so charmed by my quirkiness, if
Yes.
we will, that she really wanted to capture that. And also everyone at Netflix, I think, you know, from the moment that we met, they were like, you're perfect just as you are.
Yes.
Your kind of imperfection and silliness and the way you trip over yourself and like you make a huge mess when you're cooking. We don't want to clean that up and make you perfect like Martha Stewart or, you know, that exists already. But what doesn't exist is somebody really accessible who also knows their stuff.
Yeah.
And so they all throughout the whole process really encouraged me to just be myself, which is really funny because there's also a part of myself that's like very immigrant child, like perfectionist, trying to like tidy everything and clean everything. So we'd find ourselves in these rural homes filming, you know, and I'd be like organizing the shelf at somebody else's house and she'd be like, stop!
So Salt was filmed in Japan.
In Japan, yeah.
How did you select the location?
I mean, again, it was a team effort. I feel like I've been in this industry for a long time cooking, so I have had the incredible opportunity to meet so many amazing people from around the world.
Yeah.
So a big part of the connections were my personal connections that
Yep.
we'd made over the years. And then you sort of, you know, you meet somebody and then you say, oh, well, do you know someone who makes amazing soy sauce?
Yeah.
And so then they would send us to the next person. So my friend Yuri was an incredible resource for us. Our friend Nancy Hachisu was an amazing resource for us in Japan. And then through them, we got to meet all of these amazing artisans. And really, I was saying earlier that I started weeping in the soy sauce factory. Really? I was so moved by the like generations of tradition in this
Yeah.
place. And I asked the director, I said, why didn't you use that footage of me crying? It was so moving. I was so moved. And she said, you looked like a crazy person because nobody understood. The guy.
Why you were crying.
I totally get that. I totally get that.
And he didn't understand why you were crying in his factory.
He was weirded out.
Did you find it a big leap to go from working on the printed page and in a kitchen to doing this all?
I think it's been a series of jumps for me. First from the kitchen, which is so collaborative, to writing, which is so sort of on your own and solo, and then back to like another collaborative project of making the show, which in a lot of ways, TV production is a lot like working in a restaurant where it's a team effort. You're only as strong as your weakest person, so you have to bring everyone along. You have to make do with what you got, and their time is limited, money's limited, all that stuff. So that felt very familiar to me. But there were all these people who had incredible strengths beyond what I knew how to do, so I got to learn a lot. But for me, story is at the heart of everything. And so I felt pretty comfortable. And also, as I think in a lot of ways, I grew up to immigrant parents. I grew up not fitting in. I've spent my whole life learning how to make other people comfortable.
Yes.
And in some ways that's hard for me because it squeezes my own self often into a little corner. But on camera, it's a great skill to have because I can put anyone at ease. And so I felt really comfortable, and I think it made them feel comfortable. And then we made very authentic scenes together.
What is Samin's next story?
Oh my God, you guys.
Put you on the spot.
I definitely need to rest, so I'm going to take a break early next year and rest. And then I'm really looking forward to writing. And also, I really have enjoyed making this show. So I look forward to figuring out what show I get to make next.
What was the biggest surprise in that process for you?
Oh my gosh, that's a hard question. There were a lot of surprises along the way. I think, to me, how fast it moves, how fast you just have to get everything done, and you never get a break, and we were running for 40 weeks straight. I had friends who were like, when can we hang out? And I was like, pretend I'm pregnant, and call me when the baby's due.
Oh, that's a good one. I like that.
That would work for me. But
I was like, it just was nonstop. So I think that was not something I was expecting.
Is it fat? Is it acid? Is it, what's the last one?
Salt and heat, sister.
Heat. What's next?
I think what I'll probably end up doing is, what I really look forward to doing with all of this attention is using it to lift other people up. As a woman of color in the food industry and now on TV, there are not a lot of us here.
No.
And I've already received so much attention for that, so much positivity, which I'm so grateful for. But I woke up with kind of in a cold sweat a few weeks ago, and I was like, this is gonna get lonely if people are like, oh, Samin is our great hope. Samin is the future. So I feel like it's now my responsibility to turn it and bring others up alongside me.
Did you have a hope when you?
Did I have a hope?
Great hope as a person?
I have had many. I mean, Oprah, Michelle Obama.
Join the club.
Yeah. I mean, I think any strong women who I've been able to look up to throughout the years have been really, really inspiring to me. So I feel and luckily they're everywhere, and a lot of them aren't on TV. A lot of them are just in our family or in the backs of restaurants. And
backs of restaurants. Hello, can we talk about that?
Stuff like that. So,
oh gosh, you are an inspiration.
Oh, thank you.
And most importantly, you are such a joy.
Oh, thank you so much.
Such a joy.
It's such a delight and honor to be here.
Too.
I know. I'm gonna break you. I'm gonna get you to laugh and tickle. Yeah.
Samin Nosrat, we thank you, author and superstar.
Oh, thank you.
Congrats on the series.
Thank you, Anthony.
The James Beard Award. Everything.
Thank you. I'll be back.
Continued success.
Thank you.
Thank you all for watching.
Thank you.